The dark staining on your stucco is not dirt. I want to establish that clearly and specifically because the distinction between dirt and biology determines whether the solution costs $4 or $5,000, and the stucco industry has built a significant portion of its residential repaint revenue on homeowners never making that distinction. Dirt sits on the surface. You can disturb it with water pressure and it moves. What is on your stucco does not move when you pressure wash it because it is not on the surface. It is in the surface. It is a colony of fungi and photosynthetic bacteria that has established itself in the top layer of your stucco finish, anchored by hyphal threads and biological adhesive compounds that bond the colony to the calcium substrate of the stucco matrix. You can paint over it. The contractor who quotes you $4,800 for elastomeric recoating is counting on you painting over it, because painting over a living biological colony on a moist porous substrate does not kill the colony. It seals moisture into the substrate, provides the colony with an additional organic carbon source in the paint film, and guarantees that the staining will reappear through the new paint within 18 to 24 months, at which point you repaint again. The cycle is not a maintenance reality. It is a biological consequence of a service model that addresses the appearance of the organism without ever addressing the organism itself. I am Dr. Cole Ward, 38 years as a licensed structural engineer. Stucco exterior systems were a consistent presence in my residential assessment work, particularly in the southwestern and southeastern states where stucco is the dominant exterior finish material. The biological colonization of stucco is among the most thoroughly mismanaged conditions in residential exterior maintenance, and it is mismanaged specifically because the mismanagement is profitable. The organisms responsible for the dark staining, the green-black discoloration that appears in streaks running vertically from the roofline, in patches at grade level, in the shaded areas under eaves and around window openings, are Cladosporium species, Alternaria species, and Gloeocapsa magma. If that last name sounds familiar, it is because we discussed it in the context of roof algae staining. It is the same organism. The same photosynthetic cyanobacteria that colonizes asphalt shingles colonizes stucco finish with equal efficiency. Because both materials contain calcium carbonate compounds that the organism uses as a substrate anchor, and both materials are sufficiently porous in humid conditions to provide the moisture film that the organism requires for growth. The Applied Microbiology and Biotechnology Journal documented Cladosporium and Alternaria surface colonization mechanisms on calcium-based substrates in 2008, confirming that these organisms produce enzymatic compounds that actively dissolve the calcium carbonate surface layer to improve adhesion. The organism is not passively resting on your stucco. It is chemically bonded to it and actively digesting it. Stucco is a Portland cement, sand, and lime render applied in multiple coats over a lath substrate. The finish coat, the visible outer layer, contains a high proportion of lime, which is calcium hydroxide. As the finish coat cures and ages, atmospheric carbon dioxide converts the calcium hydroxide to calcium carbonate, essentially a fine-grained limestone surface. Calcium carbonate is the preferred substrate for multiple species of photosynthetic organisms, including the cyanobacteria and fungi we are discussing, which use it both as a physical anchor and as a mineral nutrient source. In climates that provide seasonal moisture, the morning dew cycles of the Sonoran Desert, the summer humidity of coastal Florida, the winter rainfall of coastal California, this calcium carbonate surface maintains a persistent thin moisture film that is sufficient for biological colonization, even in the absence of standing water or direct rainfall. The Journal of Coatings Technology and Research published a study in 2011 on biological growth on mineral render and stucco surfaces in humid climates that documented colonization initiation on new stucco finish within 6 to 18 months of installation in climates with average relative humidity above 60%. Your stucco was colonized within its first year. The visible staining that has developed since is the mature colony reaching surface visible density after years of growth. The elastomeric paint applied during professional repainting addresses the visual evidence of the colony without addressing the colony itself. This is not a marginal oversight. It is a fundamental mismatch between the treatment applied and the condition being treated. Elastomeric coatings are flexible polymer films designed to bridge minor surface cracks and provide a weather-resistant coating over the stucco surface. They are not biocides. They contain UV stabilizers, adhesion promoters, and weathering-resistant polymer chains. Some formulations include mildewcide additives, compounds intended to inhibit biological growth on the paint film surface. What mildewcide additives do not do is penetrate the existing biological colony embedded in the stucco substrate beneath the paint film and eliminate it. The colony is protected below the new paint layer. The mildewcide concentration at the paint-stucco interface is insufficient to achieve the kill concentrations required for established fungal and algal colonies. The moisture that the biological colony requires migrates through the paint film from the substrate. Elastomeric paint is vapor-permeable, meaning water vapor passes through it freely. The colony maintains its moisture environment below the new paint. Within 1 to 2 seasons, the new growth produced by the surviving colony has penetrated the fresh paint film from below, and the staining is visible again. ASTM D3274 provides the standard test methodology for measuring microbial growth on paint films, and the data from that testing is consistent with what any stucco homeowner in a humid climate observes. Paint films over biological contamination show measurable surface disfigurement within 12 to 24 months, regardless of mildewcide content. The contractor who returns for the third repainting cycle in 6 years is not providing inadequate work. He is providing the only outcome that the application of a non-biocidal coating over an active biological colony can produce. Calcium hypochlorite is the compound that does what the paint does not. It is the active ingredient in pool shock, the granular product sold at every pool supply store and hardware store in the country for the purpose of eliminating algae and bacteria from swimming pool water. The relevant chemistry is oxidation. Calcium hypochlorite in solution releases hypochlorous acid, a powerful oxidizing agent that disrupts the cell membrane and metabolic processes of fungal and photosynthetic bacterial cells at contact concentrations achievable with a simple surface wash application. The EPA registers calcium hypochlorite as an antimicrobial compound with documented efficacy against the specific organism families responsible for stucco colonization. The Journal of Building Pathology and Rehabilitation published efficacy data in 2021 on calcium hypochlorite treatment of fungal biofilm in mineral render, the European equivalent of stucco finish, and documented complete elimination of Cladosporium and Alternaria colonies at calcium hypochlorite concentrations between 2 and 5% by volume, with no viable colony regrowth at treated sites across the 2-year observation period. 2 to 5% calcium hypochlorite solution. That is 1 tablespoon of pool shock granules dissolved in a liter of water. The product costs $4 for a bag sufficient to treat the entire exterior of a standard residential home 3 times over. The application process requires 2 stages, and the second stage is the one that determines whether the treatment is permanent or simply a more effective version of what the paint was doing, addressing the immediate biology without removing the conditions that allow recolonization. Stage 1 is the biocidal wash. Dissolve calcium hypochlorite granules in water at a concentration of 3% by weight, approximately 1 tablespoon per liter. Transfer to a pump garden sprayer. Before application, wet all surrounding vegetation thoroughly with clean water. calcium hypochlorite at treatment concentration will bleach and damage plant material. Cover or wet any metal fixtures, aluminum window frames, and painted surfaces adjacent to the treatment area. Apply the solution generously to the stained stucco surface from top to bottom, working in sections. The solution will visibly react with the biological colony. You will observe a color change from dark green-black toward gray-white as the organism is oxidized. Allow the solution to remain on the surface for 15 to 20 minutes. Rinse thoroughly with clean water. Repeat on any areas where the staining is heavy or where the color change was incomplete during the first application. Allow the surface to dry completely for a minimum of 48 hours before proceeding to Stage 2. Stage 2 is the siloxane penetrating sealer application. This step removes the primary condition that allows biological recolonization, the moisture film on the stucco surface that the organisms require for growth. A siloxane penetrating sealer applied to clean, treated stucco penetrates the calcium carbonate finish layer and creates a hydrophobic molecular lining inside the pore structure, identical in mechanism to the silane siloxane treatment discussed for brick facades. The treated surface no longer maintains a persistent moisture film under dew and light rain conditions. Without that moisture film, the photosynthetic organisms cannot establish the initial colonization that precedes visible staining. The Construction and Building Materials Journal published performance data in 2005 on siloxane water repellent treatment on cement-based render systems that documented maintained hydrophobic performance after 10 years of natural weathering exposure, with treated test panels showing no biological colonization compared to untreated controls showing significant growth over the same period. The siloxane sealer costs $8 to $15 per liter at masonry supply distributors and covers 150 to 200 square feet per liter. Full exterior treatment of a standard residential stucco home requires 2 to 4 liters and costs $20 to $60 in materials. I want to be specific about the safety requirements for this treatment because calcium hypochlorite is a strong oxidizing agent and merits genuine respect during handling. Wear chemical splash goggles, not standard safety glasses, when mixing and applying the solution. Wear nitrile or neoprene gloves. Wear old clothing that you do not mind having bleached. Do not mix calcium hypochlorite with any other cleaning product, particularly ammonia-based cleaners or acidic compounds. The reaction produces chlorine gas, which is dangerous. Mix only the quantity you plan to use in a single session. Rinse the sprayer thoroughly with clean water after use. The safety requirements for this treatment are the same as the safety requirements for handling pool chemicals, straightforward, not complex, and entirely manageable with basic precautions. The contractor who paints over your stucco instead of treating the biology is not protecting you from a hazardous chemical process. He is protecting his recurring repainting revenue from a $4 solution. The climate factor that most affects treatment longevity is the severity and frequency of the moisture cycling that your stucco experiences. In semi-arid climates like Phoenix or Las Vegas, where moisture events are infrequent and dew cycles are brief, a single treatment combining calcium hypochlorite wash and siloxane sealer will provide biological protection for 8 to 12 years. In subtropical climates like coastal Florida or the Gulf Coast, where the combination of high humidity, warm temperatures, and frequent rainfall creates ideal biological growth conditions year-round, reapplication of the calcium hypochlorite wash on a 3 to 4 year cycle may be warranted to address recolonization from airborne spores landing on the treated surface, while the siloxane sealer maintains its moisture exclusion function for the full decade. In all cases, the total maintenance cost over a decade using this approach, 2 to 3 wash treatments and 1 siloxane sealer application, is under $50 in materials. The elastomeric repaint cycle for the same decade, at 1 application every 2 to 3 years at $3,000 to $5,000 per application, costs between $9,000 and $25,000 and does not eliminate the organism driving the condition it is being applied to address. The stucco contractor who quotes you $4,800 for exterior repainting will tell you that elastomeric paint is the industry standard for stucco maintenance and provides superior protection compared to untreated surfaces. He is correct that it provides superior weather protection compared to bare uncoated stucco. He is not addressing whether it provides superior biological protection compared to a biocidal wash and penetrating sealer, because that comparison does not exist in the residential stucco contractor conversation. He may tell you that his elastomeric product contains premium mildewcide formulation that prevents biological growth. As documented by ASTM D3274 testing, mildewcide additives in paint films inhibit growth on the paint surface, not on the biological colony established in the substrate beneath the paint. He will not offer to perform a calcium hypochlorite wash treatment and siloxane sealer application instead of repainting, because that service generates $50 in materials and 1 afternoon of labor, which is not a business model for a contractor who has built his annual revenue around $4,800 repaint cycles. He will not tell you that the pool shock in the seasonal aisle at your hardware store and the siloxane sealer at the masonry supply distributor constitute a complete treatment protocol that every building scientist who has studied stucco biological colonization would recognize as addressing the actual cause rather than the appearance. The organism on your stucco outlasted every coat of paint that has been applied over it. It will outlast the next one. It is chemically bonded to the calcium carbonate surface of your finish coat. It is feeding on the organic compounds in the paint film above it, and it is completely unaffected by anything that does not deliver an oxidizing biocide to its cell membrane at adequate concentration. The calcium hypochlorite delivers that. The paint has never delivered that. Share this with someone in a Sunbelt state whose stucco has been getting repainted on a 2-year cycle. Subscribe if you want to know which other surface of your house is hosting a living colony that the industry servicing that surface has never once mentioned, never once treated for the biology, and never once given you a reason to stop paying for.